So then if I go down to the last one here, let's just do the last one. Let me undo that because I'm gonna use this later. So now we've got a oh no, now it's okay. I'll deal with that in a second. So now we've got the last one, which is a IN. So if I go from the location I to the N, that's the modal range. I'm going from the Ionian continent to the Locrian continent, which we can give the number of a 1-7. What's the distance? It's 11 notes away. If I'm on the C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 gets me to the N, the Locrian. Or if I just look at the collection of notes and I'm on the I, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 modal half steps up, which would be the 7th scale degree if I made that the 1. So an 11 note away I 6th modal half step is equivalent to an 11 note away major 7th scale degree, right? The major shouldn't tell you anything. It's the 11 note away 7th scale degree that should be telling you what is happening. And okay, so hopefully now let's go to the ones in the middle. What about the ones in the middle? Can I do the ones in the middle? Yeah, we can go to the ones in the middle. So now we're going to say the ones that land us in the ocean, if we're in the major scale, are going to be, we're going to say, all right, we could go to an II. I'm going to call it an II plus because it's in the middle. Now remember, they don't do that over here, right? On the majors, we say it's either a major or a minor. So they still call it a second. Even though it's not a second with relation to the major scale, it lands you in the ocean, right? If I go 1 note away, it lands you in the ocean. It's a 1.5 for the major scale. So they kind of just still call it a second because it could be a second in some other scale, right? They just basically keep the same second, but that's not exactly right. You would think it would be the II I'm going to call plus. Why is there a plus? Because it's the one right after the I. So you could call it an II plus or an ID minus. In other words, if I go 1 step, it's going to land me in the ocean between the Ionian and the Dorian because I need to go 2 steps to get up to the Dorian. So we could call that a 1.5 modal range or an II plus modal range. I'm going to call it. The distance is going to be a 1 note away from the Ionian node, and it's going to be a 0.5 modal half step. Now, so which would be equivalent, you would think, to a 1.5 scale degree, but they don't do. But again, the scale degrees don't use 0.5s, right? So that would round up to a 2 scale degree. So that's going to be so anything that has a 0.5 then is going to land you in the ocean. But this is going to actually tell you by looking at it, because I'm comparing to the Ionian mode, that it's going to land you in the ocean, right? So if I go up 1 note, it's going to land me in the ocean. If I'm on the Ionian, I'm going up 0.5, which is impossible. It lands me in between the Ionian and the Dorian. That's the point. All right, let's go to the next one that's in the middle. So we have an ID. So the one right after the ID. So if I go from I to D, I'm going to call it an ID plus, meaning it's an ID 0.5 or an IP minus 0.5. And that's because if I go right after the D, there's a note in the middle. So it's a D.5. It's going to land me in the ocean once again. So I'm going to call it an ID plus, or an I is a 1 to the 2.5 modal half step, which you would think would be a 3.5 scale degree. But even though it's not in the major scale, they call it a third, right? A 3.5 is going to round up to a third, basically, is going to be the general take on that. But over here, it's more clear because it tells you by the fact that it's a 0.5 that it's in between. It's in the ocean, right? And so you have a 3 note away Ionian 1.5. If I start here and I go up 3, 1, 2, 3, lands me in the ocean. Let's go to the next one. We're going to say next one that lands me in the ocean is an IY plus. So we're going to go from the I, 1, 2, 3, and then right after the Y and in between the Y and the X. So it's an IY plus landing us in the ocean. We're fishing. We're out there fishing in the ocean. It's a 1 to a 4.5 modal range, which is a 6 node away from the Ionian node, which is a 3.5 modal half step, which you would think would be a 4.5 scale degree, but it's going to round up to 5 the way the normal naming convention is, because they don't do the 0.5, even though it's based on the major scale, and it would be in between, right? So it's going to be a 6 node away diminished. In this case, this is the weird one, fifth, because the seventh, we talked about that before, but that's going to be the idea. Usually the minor is going to be one step down from the major, which is everything's built on, but this was a perfect, so there wasn't a step down, so they had to call it diminished, and that's going to be the idea. So if I count it up, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, lands me in the ocean, and 3.5 up is going to be 1, 2, 3.5. So we are between the y and the x. You would think it would be 4.5 if I make that the 1 scale degrees. That's what the proper scale degree would be, but they don't use 0.5s. They still call it a fifth, and they say it's a flat fifth, meaning it's not in the major scale. But I want to know whether or not it's in, well, we'll talk about that later. So then we got the next one that's in the middle, an IX plus. So we're going from the IX plus, we're going I to the place right after the X. So I'm in between X and A. I'm going to call that an IX plus modal range. And the next one up is going to be here, or I'm going to call it a 5.5 modal range. It's going to be an 8 node away from the Ionian node, 4.5 modal half step, which you would think would be 5.5 scale degree, but they rounded up to a 6 scale degree, right? So if I go 9 from the Ionian, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Wait a sec. We go 8 from the Aeolian. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. From 8 from the Ionian. Lands me in the ocean just before the Aeolian continent. And if I count it up here, we're going to say it's 4.5, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4.5 is right in between here, which you would think it would be called 5.5 scale degree right in between here. But they don't do that. They just round it up to a 6, and they just call it a minor 6. That's the one that's in the middle. That's the one that lands you in the ocean if you're in a major scale. All right, and then this one is going to be an IA plus modal range, or a 6.5 modal range. So we're going from the Ionian continent to the ocean right after the Aeolian continent, landing us in between Aeolian and the Locrian. So that's going to be a 10 node away Ionian 5.5 modal half step, which you would think would be a 6.5 modal range, which rounds up to 7 because they don't use the 0.5. So if I go up 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, lands me in the ocean. If I go up 5.5 from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5, lands me between the Aeolian and the Locrian. And if I used scale degrees, you would think it would be 6.5. But no, they round it up to 7, and they just say it's a minor 7, because that's kind of like the 0.5 term, right? All right,